You see two scriptures on this meme. I'm not a fan of the book of Ecclesiastes. Why? It's written by a bitter old king who, despite receiving knowledge from the Most High, refused that knowledge and sought counsel from demons. Read that book for yourself. It's a fear-based, cynical book. It's not Christ-centered, and it doesn't refer to Christ at all. Anyone reading the book of Ecclesiastes, separately from the rest of the Old Testament and without the New Testament, would become very depressed. Nevertheless, there are some things written in that book that are practical. One of such things is the following. In chapter 9, verse 5. For the living know that they will die, but the dead know nothing at all, nor do they have any more reward, because all memory of them is forgotten. Okay, let's go to another scripture. This one is from the Psalms. His spirit goes out. He returns to the ground. On that very day his thoughts perish. This is about people that passed away, male or female. Now, this does not include knowledge of the resurrection when Christ returns. So we know that when the body expires, that the human being still exists. They are in Sheol, because the human beings are spirit beings, but they're not active right now. The same as going to sleep. When you are asleep, you're not active. Your body's there, you're in the body, but you're not active. Well, when you're out of the body has expired, the body returns to dust, you are in Sheol until Christ returns and resurrects you in a new body. Then you can be active again. So when a human being departs from the body in the here and now, it's game over for them, for now. They'll be active again when Christ returns. That means that between the expiration of their body, or when they die, and the day Christ returns, whether it's just 2 years, a few hours, or thousands of years between, it doesn't matter. They can only be active again when Christ returns. That means that in between, they are non-active. They are not active at all. That means they can't communicate with anyone. They can't raise families. They can't date. They can't build houses. They can't converse with other people. They can't do anything. They are not active. Okay? That's what you need to know. Why is it important to know this? Because in the world, there are many people that hold on to this idea that a deceased relative is watching over them. And I'm telling you, that idea is very, very dangerous. Why? I'm going to give a parable now just to highlight the seriousness of the situation. Okay, let's say now you have a house. And your house has many precious things that you've gathered during your 20s when you were traveling around the world. Then one day your son tells you, Mom, I'm going to Berlin with some friends. I won't be home until next week, Friday next week. So you think, okay, your husband is at work, so you think my son won't be home until next Friday. But the father is not aware that the son is in Berlin, because the son sent the father a text message, but the father didn't read it yet. So, well, the next day when the husband is at work, he still didn't read the text message. He's so occupied with work. He got a phone call from someone that sounded like his son. And this individual asked for the keys to the house. And then the father said, but Patrick, you have the keys already, right? Patrick said, no, I don't have them. I lost them. Then the father said, in the garden, behind the flowers, I always put a reserve key. You know that? Oh yeah, that's true that. I'm sorry, I forgot about it. But here's the thing. That individual on the phone sounded like his son, Patrick, but it wasn't Patrick. People used a software that could mimic the voice of someone, but it's just a digital mimic. So it's not an organic, natural voice. But the digital mimicking of the voice sounded similar to the natural organic voice. So the father, when he had his quote-unquote son on the line, which wasn't son at all, he felt that something was wrong with the voice, but he thought, you know what, maybe Patrick has a cold. He had his explanations for it. And the father thought, you know what, Patrick needs to get into the house. My wife ain't there, but I told them, behind the flowers in the garden, there's a reserve key. So he reminded his son, and indeed he told his son this. Then the father gets home from work. Everything's gone. They've been robbed. What happened? The father was not aware that the son, Patrick, was on holiday. Because of that, criminals could use this lack of knowledge on behalf of the father to trick him into giving them information that they needed to rob the house. So Patrick later heard that the house was robbed, and he told his dad, I sent you a text message telling you I would be in Berlin. How could you believe it was me on the phone? By the way, you recognize my voice, right? So if someone tries to make my voice with some online software, you should be able to recognize it's not my voice. And then the father said, yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't read your text message, I was too busy. But yeah, there was nothing they could do about it. Those stuff were gone. The police couldn't help them, they were robbed. Precious things were taken away. The house was empty. What happened here? The father lacked proper knowledge. The proper knowledge that his son was on holiday. He informed the father. He couldn't call the father back then because the father was at work, so he sent the father a text message. But the father, being so occupied with work, didn't notice the text message. If he did, then the thieves couldn't rob that house. Because if they would have mimicked the voice of the son, the father would have said, you're not Patrick. Patrick doesn't sound like this. Who are you? And he would hang up the phone. But because the criminals knew that Patrick would be gone, they knew that the son would be gone and that the father was often busy at work, they realized there's a big chance the father doesn't read the text message. So you know what? We're going to make a move. And the move worked. And here's the thing. Those thieves knew that Patrick would be gone. They knew that the father was often busy at work. So they studied the family before they made the attempt to rob them. Now let me tell you, believer, that's how evil spirits are. Evil spirits, they check on you. They examine you before they make their move. And in the parable I give unto you, the son informed the family members, but one of them did not pay attention. Now, the Son of God, Christ, informed you about how things will unfold. At his resurrection, after the big tribulation, the dead will rise. So between the expiration of someone's body and the second coming of Christ, they can't be active. The Son informed you. Do you trust the Son? Do you trust Christ? Because if you do, then demons can't trick you into believing that a dead relative is watching over you. But many folks hold on to folklore or fables from the past instead of checking things whether they are in line with Christ or not. There are many people checking things with the Bible, but are not checking things if they're in line with Christ. There's a big difference. Anyone can pick up the Bible and form a doctrine and deceive many. But if you have the Holy Spirit, you check whether what someone is saying is in line with Christ. Because the Bible refers to Christ. So if something is not Christ-centered, it shouldn't be honored. There are even things written in the Word that are not in line with Christ. Because those things written are the expressions of how common people operate. For example, you had the murmurings of the ancient Israelites after they lived from Egypt. Those murmurings are recorded in and written down in the Old Testament. Are you going to pick them up and hold on to them? No, it's just a report of how the people were murmuring. It's not Christ-centered. So you should learn from what's written there, but shouldn't adhere onto it. You adhere on to Christ. A lot of folks who claim to follow Christ don't adhere unto him. That's why demons can deceive them. That's why it's important to renew your mind. Look, about this dead relatives visiting you stuff, it's all about folks not processing the past. That's why I always tell you, you need to reflect on the past so you can process it, because when you're reflecting and processing it, you're moving forward. It's just like driving a car. You are focused on what's in front of you because you're moving forward. You have the mirrors at each side of the car, and inside the car you also have a mirror. You have 3 mirrors to enable you to reflect on what's behind you. You need that while driving. But you're not turning your head around looking back. You're not looking back, you're reflecting back. You're reflecting back because you have those mirrors that enable you to reflect back without taking your focus away from what's in front of you. And that's how you ought to be. You ought to reflect on the past in order to process it. And a lot of folks don't reflect. They look back. Or if they're not looking back, they haven't processed it, because you need to reflect on the past in order to process the past. That's very important. Look, there are people I know, who still hold on to this belief system that they are dead relatives watching over them, or that their ancestors are arranging things for them. I'm telling you, you are being deceived. You are being scammed. Those demons pretend to be your dead relatives, or they pretend to be your ancestors. Why? So that they can keep you trapped in a cycle of self-destruction. Most of the people I've encountered, whether online or out there, that hold on to this idea of dead relatives visiting them or ancestors watching over them, they're all stuck in bitterness or in some type of grief that they can't get over. Or, to keep it short, they are trapped in a cycle of negativity without them being aware of it. Why? Because that's what demons want to do. That's what they want to accomplish. That you're stuck in the past. In this case, a past that never happened. Because here's another thing about this dead relatives thing. When someone dies, it's a sad thing. You have to process that the individual's not here anymore. It's over. You can't work things out with an individual. You can't make up lost time. It's over. So you need to deal with that. And that's a sad thing. That people need time to grieve. Okay? However, during the grieving process, it's important to reflect on who the individual was. And here's where the trap comes in. A lot of folks don't want to face how their deceased relatives really were. It doesn't count for everyone, but this often happens. It can be that you have a parent that dies, and the grown child is so upset by it, he even becomes depressed for a while. Why is the grown man now depressed? Because in his memory, he can remember things the parents said and did that were not right. He knows deep down inside that the parent turned into a reprobate, into a narcissistic, violent predator over time. And he remembered things of his childhood where the parent misbehaved and never felt sorry for anything. So all of this reveals to the grown man that his parent, which parent is, whether it's a mother or father, were not part of the class called good people. They may have been practical and loving when they were kids, but over time they changed. So now that the individual is gone, you need to realize that that's what the individual was. That's what they've become. But too often people hold on to an image of who they want their deceased to have been, instead of accepting who they were. Okay, maybe I should say that in a better sentence. Too often people hold on to an idea of who they want, of who they wanted their deceased to have been. For example, the deceased has gone, but they wanted the deceased to be a certain way while they were still alive. And they held on to this idea while the individual was still alive. Now the individual is gone, they have to face that the individual was not who they hoped they were. And that's something a lot of folks want to face. And this is also an open door for ghosts to trick you. A ghost is a demon that pretends to be a deceased. Or a ghost, the second meaning is a Nephilim spirit. But okay, besides this thing of ghosts and demons tricking people into psychoactivity, you need to realize that your deceased relatives are gone. They didn't cease to exist, but listen, they're not even your relatives anymore. During his lifetime, because you're from the same kin, physically, you were relatives. At the resurrection, everyone will have their own resurrection body. So you will not be physical relatives anymore. You will still, they will all be part of the human race, absolutely. But that kinship that you had with them, that physical kinship, is over because they're gone. You need to face that they are gone. You need to process it. Why? So that you can live today and complete your days on the earth. This body that you're in will expire. And when Christ returns, you will have a second body that will last forever. But that you're not there yet. Christ hasn't returned back yet. Till then, you need to complete your days doing God's will. You holding on to the idea that a deceased relative is watching over you shows that you haven't processed the past. It shows that you hope to fix something that you can't fix. These are not happy messages concerning you needing to accept that certain people are gone, but people need to tell you it. Not because people want to hurt you, not because people don't care about your feelings. People may care about your feelings, but your well-being is far more important than your feelings. Your feelings affect your well-being, but your well-being overall is far more important than your feelings. That's why I honor your well-being. That's why I'm telling you, if you have dead relatives, they're gone. Just accept it, process it, they're gone. You need to focus on the here and now to complete your days in the here and now. If you have deceased relatives that were reprobate, they were wicked, they were out of line, then they are lost. When Christ returns, the lake of fire is your destination. That has nothing to do with you. It's what they decided to become. It's not your fault. You can't help it. So you need to process that and move forward. Look, you may have had great moments with that individual. Intense moments, moments of joy, moments of sharing a lot of things, but it's all gone. You need to accept that. You need to focus on life, not on death. Christ wants you to focus on the here and now. There's nothing wrong with having lovely memories about people that pass away, but don't let it turn into an idol. Make sure you make new memories in the here and now. You're still breathing. Christ has a plan with you. Focus on that. Don't rely on the quote-unquote spirits of the dead, because there are no spirits of the dead when it relates to human beings. Every human being that passed away will be resurrected when Christ returns. Till then, there is no interaction possible with them from your part, neither from their part towards you. The deceased can't even relate to one another. They can't because they're inactive. Look, even at the resurrection, you will not really be relatives anymore. They may probably look the same, sound the same because they're resurrected, but the whole setting of relationships, how they were right now, will be gone. For example, if you have a Roman soldier that died in the 1st century AD, when he's resurrected at the resurrection, there is no Roman Empire anymore. So the whole financial system that he was dependent on is not there anymore. The way he relates to people is over. Let's say that the Roman soldier lived in the province of, let me name one thing, province of Gaul, okay? The province of Gaul is the region that they call France, okay? When, let's say he owns a large plot of land somewhere at the Parisi tribe, near the town Parisiorum. The town Parisiorum today is called Paris, okay? Let's say that the ground where his farm was it's now, there's an apartment complex was built over time. So let's say that when Christ returns in Paris, there's an apartment complex over there. And let's say that in the Middle Ages, there was a village over there. So now you have a Roman soldier that's resurrected and used to live on that plot, in that space with his farm. In later ages, or later centuries, you had people having their farm over there, and later you had people living in an apartment complex. So now you have all those people that died, and they're now resurrected. How are they going to relate to each other concerning that plot of land? They can't. They can't relate to one another based on how things were when they were in the first body, because those political systems are gone. Realize that when someone passes away, it's game over for them, at least for now. If they are saved, they will be on the earth again forever. If they're not saved, they will be in the lake of fire. It's one of the two. So, focus on the living. You can grieve about the dead. I'm not saying you can't grieve when they pass away, but don't let the grief haunt you. Focus on the living. Invest in the living. Invest in the here and now. If you're a fan of history, then study history in a reflective manner to use it for the present. History is relevant. Don't let anyone fool you. History is relevant, but don't live in history. Well, that's it for now. Keep agreeing with Christ and be at peace.